Welcome back into the ASUG News Studio. My name is Tom Wilgum, and the co-editorial director of ASUG News. We are very happy to have in here Robert Aylesworth from Walt Disney. Thank you for stopping by.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
And you are a business analyst, and you also probably had the shortest commute here.
Yeah, it was. I actually live in Celebration, Florida, which is 10 minutes south of here. So
you are.
It's a good quality of life. I can't complain.
There you go. Awesome. Well, you actually just had your presentation this morning.
I did.
And I learned a lot of things as these ASUG presentations usually go. The topic was about mobile BI usability.
Mm-hmm.
A really hot topic at this type of conference because there's so much going on around that. So let's talk a little bit about your session and tell us just kind of overall, what did you want to do with the session?
So what I was trying to do was I was trying to give people some tips and some tricks on focusing on how to make BI usable in the mobile space. So obviously you're going from, I have a 24-inch screen at my desk, down to something that's maybe 3-4 inches across or even smaller. So you really have to think about what it's going to look like in that space and what sorts of things your users are going to use in that space. And really it's about making it a fun, usable experience. The two biggest things...
You said fun. Sorry, fun?
Yes, actually fun. So the two things that I learned from Gartner research is that engagement and ease of use are the biggest things to get people to actually use the mobile space. And engagement's all about having fun with the data and enjoying the experience and not making it frustrating.
When does that part happen, the fun engagement? Like, where is that in the whole process?
Well, it should be, you should be thinking about that from the very beginning because you really want to have something that's easy to use. I've seen, at least in my environment, that even when people weren't provided mobile devices, they went out and got their own, which means there must be some draw to it. And then because they have a great mobile experience at home, they want to bring that mobile experience to work. And then we throw up a ton of barriers to get in their way and not make it a pleasant experience anymore. So you really want to give them the ability to have a good experience and a fun experience right from the get-go. So they should touch it, it should be easy to use, it should be simple, and it should give them satisfaction right away.
Very interesting. So what types of apps are we talking about that you're on the mobile BI? Like, what are we talking about here from a business objects?
So from a business objects SAP perspective, the three that I looked at were Mobile BI 4.0, Business Objects Explorer, and I guess Experience is the new version of that. Another thing that I learned in my session, I'm learning new things every day. And then so those are kind of the two big ones. And then Excelsius, while it's not available for the iOS platform right now, that's something that's been promised in the near future. So for me personally, we're taking the step into 4.0 soon. So I'm looking at using mobile BI initially, and then because I'm a control freak, I need every pixel of mine to look exactly the way I want it, and I'll have no exceptions. We're probably going to wait for Excelsius to be available on iOS, and then move to that as our next step.
In terms of business drivers or getting the funding for this, how do you quantify, when you go, we want to talk about usability? I mean, is that just easy to get these days, or like how do you go in and kind of sell that? Because
you have to really prove it to them. So one of the references I use is Jacob Nielsen, and his latest survey in 2008, he was able to quantitatively prove through a huge survey of businesses on the web side that just 10% of your project budget spent on usability results in an 83% increase in your key performance indicators. So it's a huge return on investment right now. And you just have to kind of show that to people. And a lot of times it's a matter of showing them in small pockets. So one of the things that I've been working with now, because we as a department are not quite ready to launch the mobile space, is SAP's On Demand. It's a very easy kind of proof of concept area where you can upload Excel data and then you can work with that individually and show people what it might look like and kind of get their feedback and their feeling around it, and then just kind of show them what it looks like. Really just kind of give them a primer on what usability is and how that works. And really it's just about making it easy for the customer to use and then explaining that in terms of the operations. So I can't go out to, now luckily for me, I don't necessarily support a direct operation area, but if we had somebody in our food and beverage line of business Those people are way too busy to sit through a 3 or 4 day training class. You need to put something in their hands that's simple, that's easy to use, and they can start using right away, and that they get value out of right away, because then they'll come back to it. Even if there are some flaws at first, if you give them immediate value, then you've got them hooked, and you can say, this part might not be ready for prime time yet, but I'm working on it, and I want to hear your concerns, and I want to make it better for you.
It must be compared to, the way people are used to, getting new software. Like, this must be like, holy cow, like this is so much. If you, use the word fun.
Yeah.
Right. When you start doing that, that's a whole different way to do this, I'm assuming.
Well, you totally flip the process on its head. It used to be an upgrade was so expensive and so costly and took so much effort, and now with a mobile app, you can just push upgrades to the users, and they can take them when they want. And I'm amazed at like all the stuff I have on my phone and my iPad. New stuff comes out all the time that I didn't even know it was coming, and I'm so thrilled to have it that I'm looking for the new updates, and I'm like, okay, what's in the next version? What's in the next version? Because I really want to get to it. It's a totally different experience than, and you have to, as a developer, you have to flip your mindset too. You have to say, how can I help my customer today, as opposed to, how do I, take the steps that take forever to get it perfect before I give it to anybody.
Right. And that's a huge change in mindset for a lot of people, I'm sure, at this conference.
It is.
But also when you get, sure, you can come here, get energized, and then go back to the office, right? And be like,
Yeah.
Hey guys, I heard this guy Robert do a great pitch. Here's what we're gonna do, and they're like, what would you advise? What are your first 1 or 2, 3 things to do to kind of start creating that type of environment?
It's really simple, and there's only one thing: show, don't tell. So I can't get anybody on board, and I think one of the failure points that I had early on was I was trying to tell people what the environment was going to be. But you can go now with all the cloud software that's out there. There's a lot of access to free development license. You can go and build something very robust. Even if it's kind of smoke and mirrors at this point, you need to show people what it's going to be. And you can say, okay, well, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do this, but this is what it could do. And here's what it would look like if it was doing that on your device, on your iPad, or you bring them an iPad and show them what it looks like. And that's where you get them engaged and to say, yeah, we really need to do this. That's one of the great kind of features that Excelsius had going for it early on, was that you could build a model and you could change and tweak things very quickly, and have that interactive conversation with your users, as opposed to you build something that they don't really want, that you do a ton of markup on it, and then you say, okay, I'm going to go away for a month, and then I'll be back, and then I'll show you what I think you told me. Now you can pull the stuff apart immediately and say, oh, you don't like this as red, you want it to be green, or you want this color over here, you want to move that there. The prototyping is definitely the way to get people engaged, because then they're in the process with you.
Right. One of the key words I think you were just talking about was like transparency. Use when you were telling me about this, be honest with them.
Yeah.
It doesn't do this yet, but it could do this. Is that another key for these types of things?
It's huge. And it's something that's scary for us technical professionals, is that you don't want to admit your flaws and your mistakes. It's a huge lesson that I'm learning myself, is I don't know everything. There's no possible way that I could, and I'm going to screw up at some point. So it's a matter of admitting your strengths and your weaknesses, telling people where it's great, where it's not so great, getting that message across. And then, the other piece of it is, don't make it a fatal mistake. If it's so bad that it's not useful to anybody anymore, that's the product that you don't want to roll out yet. You want to focus your area and make it so you're giving them good value right away, but don't make it so difficult that they get frustrated and they give up. So it's almost better to narrow your scope and give them very good things off the bat that you can well control, and then maybe some experimental beta stuff that's not quite ready yet, as long as you caveat it and say, hey, we're early on in this, I want your feedback on it. But it's not fully working yet, so tell me what's right and what's wrong, and we'll see if we can't get it fixed for you. And then you got to deliver on your promises. If you say you can get something changed, you have to be able to get it changed.
That's a great point. Also, what about cutting stuff that's not working? You can't be afraid to just say, okay, that totally didn't work, it's gone.
Well, that's a huge piece of mobile too. So you could, the great thing about the speed of design is you can drop and add things basically on the fly. But the other piece of it is your space is so small that you really have to cut to the bone. You have to have only the things that they need. Every pixel on that screen is absolutely priceless. You only get so many of them. So you have to use that space wisely, and you have to create things that are, the top 1 or 2 or 3 things that they want, not the top 10, because there's not enough space for it.
And even, are there differences between iPads and, say, iPhones? The screen's obviously smaller. Do you have to think that too?
Absolutely. You can't, one of the fatal Well, and I don't want to say fatal, but one of the mistakes I made early on is we had an ASP.NET application that we built custom, which was great on the desktop screen and looked exactly the way I wanted it to, because I went pixel by pixel and told them exactly what I wanted, and they built it. It was fantastic. But then one of the mistakes that I made was we were able early in the demo phase to pull it up in a mobile platform. Actually was able to pull it up on a BlackBerry, pull it up on an iPhone, pull it up on an iPad. Unfortunately, the lesson I learned since then was the only format that's really usable is the iPad, because that's a 10-inch screen where you can actually do some manipulation. It is far too small, or too big rather, once it gets scaled down to those smaller screen devices to be useful to anybody. So it's not being used in that space. So I was so excited that it just magically worked on mobile. I didn't have to do anything extra. I'm like, this is going to be great, except for no, because it's just not usable in those smaller screens. So you're absolutely right. Anytime you go really iPad, desktop, they're close to interchangeable, but not really, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Once you scale down to the phone size, you really have to completely rebuild the design for what's going to be available. My fingers aren't that big and fat, but they're normal human-sized fingers. They can't touch little buttons. It's not possible.
The other thing I know you wanted to mention, you mentioned your presentation, was the different tools that you guys are trying, the BI Mobile, MicroStrategy, Ryobi, some of those other ones. Have you, can you give us a little assessment of each and how that is working out?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you that I'm not sold on anything yet, so I'm kind of an open book at this point. Like I talked about earlier, I think we're going to start in the SAP BI, Mobile BI 4.0, because that's a really easy kind of get your foot in the door client. It's great as far as the formatting goes, and it gives you a very smooth user experience, and that it's very easy to take a web intelligence report and turn it into a mobile report. The part that's not so great is, and you'll find that with most of the tools that I talk about, is if it's easy to get into the mobile space, that means you have almost no control over what's in the mobile space. So what you see in web intelligence, unfortunately, is not what you get in the mobile space, even though it's a fairly clean interface and fairly usable. It's also not super for a dashboard type of application where you need to see multiple charts at a time. It's difficult to see 2 or 3 or more things in that space unless you really set it up well. Another one that's great from the SAP side is the Explorer/Experience, depending on which level you're looking at. And it looks like Experience is even more advanced than the Explorer I've played with to this point. But that's a great tool for data analysts. It's not a great tool for your operational style manager, where they just need an answer and they need an answer now, because it's really meant to be a data drill-in tool. So if you want to take a huge chunk of data to a meeting and expect to get 5 or 6 questions from different directions on what that data is going to do, then that's a great tool for that. But if you're trying to deliver a dashboard to somebody in an operation who's got 30 seconds to look at something and then they need to go do something else, you really want to look at something different. The other products that I talked about, well, Excelsius. Unfortunately, Excelsius is not available in iOS right now, but that should be coming in the near future, which late 2011 is the last thing that I heard. We'll see how that comes out, but it's something that I'm personally looking forward to, because then I can really tear the dashboard apart and build exactly what I want with the data sets that I have in SAP. Some other options, MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is kind of a different animal from SAP. They don't really necessarily play together very well. But if you're already in that environment, they have a very robust mobile atmosphere. It's a lot like Excelsius, where you have full manipulation control. Another one that got mentioned in my session was Tableau. Tableau does a very good dashboard environment. I don't have a whole lot of experience with that, but had quite a few evangelists in the session about that. And then the last one that's kind of an easy startup is Ryobi. So Ryobi is a similar experience to SAP Mobile BI, where you can take your data and turn it into a visualization very easily, and has quite a few more layouts that you can choose from. But again, you have the issue of, because it's easy to go over with the data, you don't have full control over what it does.
Well, Robert, thank you very much for stopping by. We appreciate it. I think we managed to cram 45 minutes into this 10 minutes. So I appreciate
I'm a fast talker.
That's great.
Yeah,
thank you very much. For more videos, check out asugonline.com, as well as ASUG TV channel on YouTube. And thank you very much for watching.